you, on your most recent episode of your podcast and YouTube show, which I encourage everybody to subscribe to, On Strike, you critiqued Teamsters President Sean O'Brien's speech to the RNC. So the episode is titled here, Democrats, Sellouts of Labor, Open Door for GOP, Teamster President's Shameful Speech at RNC. So this is in keeping with our last topic to an extent. We touched on this. But how have Republicans made these inroads with labor in recent years to the point where a Teamsters president would even show his face at their convention? Now, he did not endorse Donald Trump, but he is shopping around, as he says. So how did we get to that point?
Absolutely, we are at this point because of the betrayals by the Democratic Party, and also because of the politics that prevail for the most part in the labor leadership. You know, like if you listen to Sean O'Brien's speech, obviously, I think you guys talked about this on your show as well, and we talked about it in On Strike, which is that if you listen to many parts of his speech, they actually probably were the most pro-worker speech you would probably hear at a Republican or a Democratic national convention.
Yes.
Right?
For sure.
Which itself is it's less a statement of him. It's more a statement about the Democrats and Republicans being so divorced from the needs of the working class over the years. And so I think that's a feature. But he talks about how, like at one point he says, you know, Teamsters don't care if you have a D on your name or R on your name or an I on your name. And obviously he included the I because they did an internal poll of the Teamsters and there was support for RFK Jr. also. And so what we see, and this is to your question, Keaton, like how did this come to pass, is that you have a Democratic Party, obviously Republican Party, which is and has been openly anti-worker and anti-union, deeply hostile. And then you have the Democratic Party, also deeply hostile to unions, but in a way that creates illusions that maybe they are not anti-union. You know, you have a so-called progressive wing. You literally have something called a Congressional Progressive Caucus with 100 members there, you know, and Democrats there, led by Pramila Jayapal, who's a Congress member from Washington State right here. And what do? They sell out workers and the union movement every single time. But then you have the vast majority of the labor leadership, nonetheless, tied to the Democratic Party because they come from the same political ideology, same political thinking, which is that they don't really have anger against capitalism itself. They don't believe that capitalism needs to be overthrown. They don't believe that it can be done, even if they think that it should be, the rare ones among them. And ultimately, they are there to manage the interests, the greed of the bosses and the needs of the workers. And in fact, one of the most telling things in my view in Sean O'Brien's speech was where he referred to himself as a negotiator. He wasn't lying. That's how labor leaders see their role. They see their role as negotiators, as trying to bridge this chasm, which cannot be bridged between working people and the bosses who exploit them. But they see them as managing all these different interests and trying to get crumbs to workers, to their members, keep them happy, while they themselves are making a decent salary. They're not millionaires. Sean O'Brien I don't think is a millionaire, but he takes home a salary of $250,000 every year, completely removed from the life of the ordinary people represented in the Teamster Union and much less non-unionized workers. And so when you have a Democratic Party and a Republican Party, both of whom have failed you, but at the same time, with the veneer that the Democratic Party is on your side, and then you see ongoing betrayals, especially the railroad workers strike being blocked and broken by the Democrats, then you have a section of your membership looking towards Trump. And it's on the strength of that Sean O'Brien has gone. Although I think there was a lot of backlash to him within the Teamsters. I believe Teamster Mobilize, which is a caucus within the Teamsters, had a meeting yesterday to discuss all of this, to discuss exactly how this came to pass. And so the only solution to all of this is to understand that, again, to have a labor leadership that understands that neither the Democrats nor the Republicans are going to be an answer. And I think history is a guide, and we talked about this on our show. Like, so part of what prompted Sean O'Brien, I think, to go, I mean, the best assessment, I mean, the most benign interpretation of him going, I think it is a terrible and shameful thing for a labor leader to go to a Republican convention, and he didn't endorse Trump, but that's only in name. He went on praising Trump. He called him a one tough SOB.
Yeah, they got the sound bites they needed, sure.
Exactly. Exactly. So one of the most benign interpretation you can put on this type of strategy is that these labor leaders like Sean O'Brien, they think that, well, we can play the Republicans against the Democrats, as a threat. Like, hey, just you wait. If you betray us again, right, then we'll go to the Republicans. It doesn't work. That sort of thing doesn't work. Look at what happened to the Teamsters themselves and to PATCO when Reagan came to power. Both the Teamster Union and PATCO, the Air Traffic Controllers Union at that time, were angry at the Carter administration with good reason, because the Democrats under Carter had betrayed them. So they turned to Reagan thinking that this sort of, tit for tat would work. But what did Reagan do? One of the first things he did was broke the back of the air traffic controllers. And it was very clear it was not a one-off. It was a signal to the labor movement, in fact, internationally, between him and Thatcher, that this is going to be a new era. We are going to crush labor. So that kind of clever tit for tat between Republicans and Democrats, a clever game played by labor leaders, if that is indeed what's going on in Sean O'Brien's head, I don't know. But as I said, it's the most benign interpretation you can put on that. But even that most benign thing, it doesn't work. History shows that it fails. And so ultimately, we have to call him out on doing that. But we also have to call out Sean O'Brien, Sarah Nelson, all of them for supporting Biden. I mean, Sarah Nelson was supporting Biden publicly even after George Clooney and others were saying he needs to go.
Well, I think you touched on something really important in there, which is the lowering of expectations among working people. You said people have sort of resigned themselves to the permanent staying power of capitalism, which really just filters out any revolutionary energy within these labor movements to the point where they feel like they have to get the best deal they can within the system. And as long as I have to get the best deal I can within the system, I'm going to shop around. I'll go to the RNC, I'll go to the DNC, I'll go to RFK. And I agree with you that that's not going to cut it at the end of the day. Can we blame workers for feeling like capitalism is just here to stay? And the B part of that question is, how much culpability do people, I hate to keep bringing this up, but like Bernie Sanders and the squad, bear for that? Because they took people's money, they took people's energy, and promise them that they can go and get them something not necessarily revolutionary, but at least transcendent to a degree above what we have. And they failed. That movement is in shambles. So when you get people's hopes up and then drop them on the floor, I feel like we're in that sort of post progressive landscape where now working people feel like, all right, within this system, we're back at square one. What do we do? And that, to me, is an explanation of how they end up at the RNC.
Right. It's certain. I mean, yes, as I said, there's a section of the Teamster Union that it's a membership itself that is attracted to Trump. And I can't remember the exact numbers, but there was a slightly larger proportion that was, at that time, it was Biden still. For Biden, a slightly smaller proportion for Trump, and then a slightly smaller even for RFK. So that churn has already been happening. And in fact, I remember in 2016 itself, when Trump won, I know that at that time, one of the labor organizers who worked with us in our office, Jonathan Rosenblum, who's very much on the left and considers himself socialist, and who's very hated by a lot of the labor leaders. He was talking to a local Teamster leader here, leader of Teamster 117. And in fact, at that time, in a rare moment of honesty by a labor leader, he said, that Teamster leader said, what can I say? I know many of my members voted for Trump. And so it's not something that's happened today. It's been a whole progression, and it has been worsened by the betrayals carried out by Biden. And Absolutely. Bernie Sanders has, you said how much culpability do people like him have? Absolutely. Some of the biggest blame goes to the squad and to Bernie Sanders, to the so-called left inside the Democratic Party, because they have
They've made people cynical, I think. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. It has been a destructive influence on consciousness among working people, because it turned, it forces you, it makes you feel like, fuck it, I'm just out of politics. I don't care. Or in some ways worse is then people turn towards Trump. Either way, it's actually it's not a way forward. And I don't blame ordinary people. I don't blame the rank and file of the labor movement at all. It is at the doorstep of the Democratic Party, including the so-called left in the Democratic Party. It's also at the doorstep of the labor leaders, though. I don't give the same benefit of doubt to Sean O'Brien that I do to the Teamster rank and file, because he knows better. He's not whatever new one on the block or whatever. He's been around. He's doing that cynically, the different meaning of the word cynically. So no, I think we have to hold the leadership responsible, because they have much more responsibility on them. But as far as the rank and file is concerned, yeah, it is the absence of any real left. It is because the labor leadership themselves, big sections of them have sold out. Listen, let's not forget, and during the railroad workers, the whole controversy then when the workers were ready to go on strike, and these are workers who are struggling for basic things like paid sick leave, extremely overworked. We saw afterwards what happened in East Palestine, which showed an example of really our society as a whole will pay consequences for this. And at that time, what was Sean O'Brien's role? Right now, maybe some on the left might be tempted. I don't think we should be. It is a very wrong thing, but might be tempted to think, okay, well, he's doing the genuine thing. Democrats sold workers out, so he's going to the Republicans. Well, the Teamsters, under the Teamster umbrella come half of the railroad unions, half of the workers. Sorry, they're divided into different locals, and half of the workers that were whose contracts were in dispute at that time come under the Teamster leadership. And at that time, what was Sean O'Brien's role? He didn't say, let's go out all out on strike. Let's teach these Democrats and Republicans in Congress a lesson. No, he was busy giving cover to Biden and actually publicly attacking the rank and file of the Teamsters in the railroad union, who were angry at the sellout that was happening. This is the same guy. Now he's going to the RNC acting like, well, I'm a defender of my members, and I've been sold out of the Democrats and that's why I'm here. No, that is not. And so it is completely disingenuous, on a disingenuous basis, that he has done this. And we have to call it out. And at the same time, we have to call out the dead end of the rest of the labor leadership shilling for the Democrats. Neither is going to work.
Please clap.